Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spaghetti Westerns podcast. This is season 5, number 5, hole number 105. Today we're going to talk, and I'm Tom Betts, your host. Today we're going to cover, in our history of the Spaghetti Western series, The Last Gun with Cameron Mitchell. Whatever Happened To will be Livio Lorenzen. Who Are Those Gals? This week is going to be Mariana Koch. Film of the week is Dead Men Ride. Got a couple of posters for you. I do have an autograph this week. And we'll have the CD of the week, and then we'll end things with the news of the week. So let's get started, and we're going to talk about history of the spaghetti westerns and The Last Gun. Cameron Mitchell made 2 spaghetti westerns. This is the least known. Italian title is Jim Il Primo, also called Era una pistol infallible lo chiamavano Jim Il Primo. Spanish title is El Ultimo Revolver. Some of the English titles are The Lonely Gunfighter, Django the Last Gun, and Tony Williams can tell me whether this was a video title or it was released in the theaters as Killer's Canyon. And then the USA title was The Last Gun. 64 Italian production from Ras Film in Rome. Producers are Luigi Gianni and Elio Sorrentino. The director is billed as Sergio Bergone, which is actually Sergio Bergonzelli. Story is by Dick Fulner, Fulner. Screenplay is by Dick Fulner, Ambrose Molteni, which is Palmambrogio Molteni, and James Wilde Jr. The 2 English names, Dick Fulner and James Wilde Jr., I have no idea who those are, or if they're aliases. Cinematography is by R. Gerone, which is Romulo Geroni, and Amerigo Gengirelli. It's in Eastman color and Superscope. The music is by Marcello Giganti. There's 2 songs in the film. Main theme song is Young Jim Hart by Peter Tevis. And then in the movie itself, there's another one, Amor Mexicano, sung by Reina Filippini. The main cast is Bill or Jim Hart, played by Cameron Mitchell. Guitar is played by Carl Moner. Dolores is played by Selena Celli. Jane or Janet is played by Kitty Carver. Jess Lindahl is played by Livio Lorenzo. Bowtie is played by Hugo Mudd, which is Hugo Fangireggi. And the sheriff is played by Harris Cooper, who's Giulio Maculani. So you can see some of the Americanized names in the cast trying to cover it up as an American film. The story is Bill or Jim Hart, played by Cameron Mitchell, is nicknamed Jim Il Primo because he is the best shot in the West. He swears on the body of his latest victim to never use a gun again and to lead a peaceful life in the future. But Jim's intentions do not last long. After he takes a job as a shopkeeper, a band of outlaws led by Jess Lindahl, played by Livio Lorenzen, arrives in the town of Sanderson and turns it upside down, spreading terror among its inhabitants. No one has the courage to stand up against the bandits except a masked man who intervenes when appropriate. The outlaws are trying to seize a cargo of gold and have the upper hand on the sheriff, played by Giulio Maculani, who defends the precious cargo by himself when, once again, the masked man intervenes. Helped by one of the gang, a man called Guitar, played by Carl Moner, the masked hero turns out to be, surprise, surprise, Jim Hart, who ends the bandits' reign of terror by killing all the outlaws. In a surprise ending, Guitar turns out to be Hart's brother. This is available on Blu-ray in the United States and in France, and it's available on DVD in the USA, Italy, and Germany. Talking points. The Lone Ranger rip-off and very American-looking Western. Although strictly an Italian production, it's still made to look like an American Western. The villain, Jess Lindahl, is pure evil, and the decent sheriff, as usual in the 1950s American Westerns, gets no help from the townsmen. They fail to protect the townswomen, who the Lindahl gang seem to lust more for than the gold, and the brutality towards the women is seen throughout the film. The town drunk is set to beat his daughter, and even Hart raises his hand against Dolores when she accuses him for not doing anything to stop the bandits. According to author Marco Giusti, Mitchell was unhappy about not being paid at the agreed upon time. That apparently prompted the gimmick of the masked gunman. If Mitchell had to be replaced, the hero of the piece wouldn't be recognizable. It also explains the fact that Mitchell's voice is dubbed, which will detract from the film for most of us. Maybe Cameron's dispute also had something to do with that also. Many other actors were paid extras to dub their films. Often they were too busy and a dubber had to be used. So it's not uncommon to have the American actors dubbed in the final release or the English release. The musical score by Marcello Giganti is nothing like the spaghetti scores that will follow in the coming years. All in all, it's an average Western, maybe for completists, but not to spend too much time on trying to hunt it down or paying a large sum of money for. As far as the actor bios, Bill or Jim Hart, played by Cameron Mitchell, whose real name is Cameron McDowell Mizell, born in 1918 and died in 1994. We've covered him extensively in episode number 87. Guitar was played by Karl Mohner. Karl Martin Rudolf Mohner was born in Vienna, Austria on August 11, 1921, and was a director, writer, composer, and film actor. He appeared in 40-plus films from 1949 to 1977. Probably best known for his appearance as Joe Le Sodois in the 1955 Rafifi. He appeared in 3 Euro westerns, The Last Gun, The Man Who Came to Kill, and Gold Train, which were both in 1965. He moved to the United States and settled in McAllen, Texas, where he devoted his time to his artwork before dying of Parkinson's disease on January 14, 2005. He was married 3 times and had 2 sons, actors Gernot and Gunther Mohner. Dolores was played by Selina Celli, or Celli. She was born Genevieve Therese Alberte George in Tunisia on June 14, 1932. She was a director, film actress, and photographer. She's appeared in 18 films from 1951 to 1976 and is best remembered for his appearance in sword and sandal films such as The Beast of Babylon Against the Son of Hercules in 1963, Gladiator of Rome in 1962. She was married in the early 1960s to director-actor Philippe Hersant. He was born in 1908 and died in 1982. And she was married later to journalist Philippe Alexandre from 1966 to 1998. Some trivia: she was engaged to J. Paul Getty Jr. from 1962 to 1964. Jane or Janet was played by Kitty Carver, sometimes billed as Ketty Carver. This is her only film, and I can find no reference to her or her real name anywhere on the internet. So who knows if she's still with us or when and where she was born. Jess Lindahl was played by Livio Lorenzen, who we'll cover in a minute in Whatever Happened To. Okay, that's it for The Last Gun. Now we'll move along to Who Are Those Guys? Livio Lorenzen. Okay, Livio Lorenzen is another one of those guys where you might not recognize the name, but you've seen in all kinds of sword and sandal films, spy films, and spaghetti westerns. He was born in Trieste, Italy on May 6, 1923. His father, Giovanni Lorenzen, worked first as an engineer on a freighter called the Lloyds. His mother was named Celinda, but little is known about her. His brother is actor Gianni Solaro, born in 1926. He died in 2006. After serving in World War II, Lorenzen married and worked as a longshoreman, and given his outstanding horse racing skills, he became an equestrian trainer at the Allied Military Corps, the military arm of the Italian Army, stationed in Trieste, for which he also acted as a truck driver. Remember, in the immediate post-war period, Trieste constituted a separate state. The FFT, or Free Territory of Trieste, managed by the military government until 1954, when the city was definitely re-annexed to Italy. Livio then became one of the voices, today we would call him a radio personality, of Radio Trieste, and his film debut took place in the city with the participation in the film Shadows over Trieste, where he hid behind the pseudonym Elio Arden, which he still used later for some of his short films. Lorenzen then moved to Rome, where he began his long career as an actor, often playing the role of the villain thanks to his deliberately hard-faced, bald head and physique, all surrounded by that satanic grin that he was particularly good at. His debut film was Barrier of the Law in 1954 with Piero Costa and Rossana Brazzi and Leah Padovani. But his real great success came in the mythological sword and sandal films, where the Trieste actor can boast a host of interpretations of the greatest villains. Salamansar in Hercules Against the Tyrants of Babylon in '64 by Domenico Paolella, the Praetorian villain Masurio in Hercules Against Rome in '64 by Pietro Pirati. He is King Zagro in The Vengeance Ursus 1964 by Luigi Capuano, Covo in The Fury of the Barbarians in 1960 by Guido Malatesti, Keller in The Revolt of the Mercenaries in 1960 by Piero Costa, and Barabbas in Pontius Pilate in 1961. On the set of Goliath and the Barbarians, Livio Lorenzen met and married his wife, the stunt double of the beautiful Cuban actress Chelo Alonso. It is true that his appearance made him suitable for the roles of the toughest and baddest characters, but it is also true that Livio made himself known in the world of entertainment for his big heart. In fact, in Cinecittà he was called the curmudgeon with a heart of gold, or the barbarian with a heart of gold. It is even said that one day he suspended the shooting of a film to pick up an injured bird that had fallen on the beach. In addition to cinema, Livio also appeared in some television films such as the drama An American Tragedy in 1962 and the giallo film Playing Golf One Morning by Daniel Dianza. He then participated in spaghetti westerns, 20 of them, where he sometimes was billed as Charlie Lawrence. He's probably best remembered for his role as Baker, who hires Lee Van Cleef to get information from Stevens, the farmer. But in turn, he's murdered in his bed when Lee tells him, "When I'm paid, I always see the job through." A heavy drinker, if not an alcoholic, Lorenzen died on December 23, 1971, in the La Sana Hospital, where he had been hospitalized for cirrhosis of the liver. Some of his best remembered spaghetti western roles were The Last Gun with 1964 as Jess Lindahl, which we just covered, Colorado Charlie in '65, where he plays the lead, billed as Charlie Lawrence, Texas Adios in '66, he plays Alcalde Miguel, '66 as Baker in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, '67 as Lash in The Winchester Does Not Forgive. He plays Paco Rosa in 1968, Ace High, and his last film, God Will Forgive My Pistol, as Ramon Ramirez in 1969. Okay, now let's move on to Who Are Those Gals and Mariana Koch. Yeah, we all know who Mariana Koch is, but do we really? She was born Mariana Koch in Munich, Bavaria, Germany on August 19, 1931. She is the daughter of Dr. Rudolf Schindler, who was born in 88 and died in 1968, known as the father of gastroscopy, the study of digestive system and its disorders. He was arrested by the Nazis but escaped and fled to America. Between 1950 and 1971, Koch appeared in 65 films. She worked in German films as a photographer and cutter during the summer months while she was going to school to make money. She postponed her medical studies for 2 to 3 years uh, and became an actress during that time because she was given bigger and bigger roles. She had numerous leading roles in the German cinema in the 1950s and 1960s, and in 1954, she appeared in Night People as a supporting role alongside Gregory Peck. Koch also had major roles in the Hollywood films Four Girls in Town and Interlude, both released in 1957. She remains perhaps best known internationally as Marisol in Sergio Leone's 1964 production Fistful of Dollars, which showcased her with Clint Eastwood. In Germany, she was probably best known for her many years of participation as one of the regular panelists in the highly popular TV game show Was bin ich? It's the German adaptation of the American TV show What's My Line, and it ran from the 1960s until 1988, and it achieved ratings of audience share of 75% at its peak. In 1971, she resumed her medical studies, which she had broken off in the early 50s, to become an actress. In 1964, she earned her degree and practiced medicine until 1997 as a specialist for internal medicine in Munich. Also in 1974, she was one of the initial hosts of Germany's pioneering talk show 3 nach 9, 3 after 9, for which she was awarded the Grammy Prize, one of the most prestigious awards of the German television industry. She also hosted other television shows, and in 2014 had a medical advice program on radio. Koch's also written several self-help based books. Marianne was married to Dr. Gerhard Freund, who was born in 25 and died in 73, and is the mother of two sons. She divorced Freund after he began an affair with Miss World 1956 Petra Schurman, whom he later married. Koch later began a relationship with the writer Peter Ham, which lasted from the mid-70s until his death in 2019. In discussing Fistful of Dollars, she said she didn't want to be in the film. She thought it was, in her words, too cruel, but the producers persisted and she couldn't say no when they increased her salary. She said she saw the film again in 2017 and she still thought it was too violent. Mariana didn't see her father, who fled from Germany to California and practiced in Los Angeles until she came to Hollywood to film more of her during her film career. She then met him for only 40 minutes. The meeting was cordial but not emotional for both of them. She didn't see him again after that until years later. Today she retired and living in Munich. Koch appeared in 6 Euro westerns: The Last Ride to Santa Cruz in 63 as Elizabeth Liz Kelly, Fistful of Dollars in 64 as Marisol, A Place Called Glory in 65 as Jade Grande, 65 also in Sunscorched as Annalisa Schmidt, 65 again in Who Killed Johnny R. as B. Burdette, 67 as Julie Harrison in Clint the Stranger. She was also in a 2001 TV episode of Once Upon a Time in Europe as herself, and in 2001 she appeared in 2001 in a documentary, Sergio Leone, Cinema. Okay, now we're going to move on to the film of the week, Dead Men Ride. Okay, Dead Man Ride. It's a 71 Italian-Spanish co-production. Italian title was Anda Muchacho Spara, also called Il Sole Sotto la Terra. Spanish title was El Sol Bajo la Tierra. It was known in the UK at the end of the rainbow. Again, Tony Williams can tell me whether that was a video title or if that was actually a theatrical title. The English title was never released here in film. It came out on video as Dead Men Ride. It was produced by Eduardo Manzanos Brochero, Fulvio Lucasano, Alfredo Nicolai. Directed by Aldo Florio. Story and screenplay were by Ian Brochero, which is Eduardo Manzanos Brochero, Bruno Di Geronimo, and Aldo Florio. Cinematography was by Emilio Forrescott. It was in Telecolor and CinemaScope. Music was by the great Bruno Nicolai. We'll talk about him when we do the CD of the week. And it ran for 105 minutes. Main cast was Roy Greenford, played by Fabio Testi. Emiliano, played by Massimo Serrato. Redfield was played by Eduardo Fajardo. Jessica was played by Charo Lopez. Pedro or Joselito Cosarito was played by Jose Calvo. Newman was played by Roman Barrett, who's actually Romano Pupo. Lawrence or Jose Tito was played by Ben Cara. A couple of other familiar names in the cast are Daniel Martin and Tomas Pico, who play minors. Alan Collins, who's actually Luciano Pagose, plays Manolo. Alfredo Unger in the role of Chris. Jose Nieto plays Sheriff Mortimer. Okay, story goes as Roy Greenford, played by Fabio Testi, escapes from prison and is discovered and then hidden by a Mexican peasant named Pedro Cosarito, played by Jose Calvo, who works in the gold mines. Roy learns that peasants are used as pawns by Redfield, played by Eduardo Fajardo, and his two evil partners, played by Newman, Romano Pupo, and Lawrence Ben Cara, to mine the gold. When the workers attempt to sell their gold for cash, they are cheated by Redfield's bankers. Some of the peasants try to escape to Tucson to sell their gold, but are killed by bandits lurking in the mountains. These bandits are also under the employ of Redfield. Roy, who hides a mysterious agenda, eventually goes to the town run by the unscrupulous trio to settle accounts in regards to his friend Emiliano, played by Massimo Serrato. Redfield is impressed with Roy after killing the barber in a seemingly unprovoked attack. Roy soon infiltrates Redfield's gang and begins sabotaging the relationships he has with his men. But nobody seems to know who he is or why he is doing this. Emiliano was the former mine owner and was a man of some repute. Pedro lived on the grounds of his mansion, as did Jessica, played by Charo Lopez, and his daughter. Jessica is now used for sex by Lawrence and Newman, Redfield's henchmen. Redfield had somehow destroyed Emiliano's reputation and had him framed for an unarmed crime, which led to his prison sentence chained to Roy's leg. Redfield uses Roy to eliminate his business partners. Like No Name and Fistful of Dollars, Roy is exposed as a traitor and brutally tortured, but he is saved and nursed back to health by some of the townspeople who have now chosen his side. Now the miners rally behind Roy and overthrow Redfield and take back the mine for themselves. You'll see quite a few similarities between this film and Fistful of Dollars. They even used the Fistful of Dollars town. All of the motives of the hero are practically the entire plot are revealed only at the end of the film. Until then, we only get teasing details and flashbacks. For many, the film's vague nature is not a problem compared to the highly enjoyable film. For others, it doesn't matter how style it is. It does have problems. The film's dramatic power could not have been achieved without Bruno Nicolai's wonderfully grand score. He uses piano riffs instead of guitar riffs for the build-up scenes. He also uses vocals and orchestra wonderfully. And as usual, Nicolai gives us some of the most stinging guitar riffs ever heard on the genre. Okay, actor profiles. Main actor, Roy Greenfield, is played by Fabio Testi. Fabio was born August 2nd, 1941 in Peschiera del Garda, Verona, Veneto, Italy. After growing up witnessing film work being done in Lake Garda, Testi entered the sets of the film and began working as a stuntman and a double, where he worked as a stuntman on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Testi continued stunt work and getting roles in low-budget genre films until he was cast in Vittorio De Sica's film The Garden of the Finzi Cantinis. Following this film, Testi became a star in Italy, appearing in some artistic films. Testi's popularity as an actor slowed towards the end of the 1980s, after which he predominantly worked in television. By the early 2000s, Testi had been married twice, once to Lola Navarro from 84 to 96, and had 3 children, Fabio Testi Jr., Tomas, and Trini, and then again married Antonella Lazzaro in 2015, but they're now separated. Fabio has appeared in 14 spaghetti westerns, including Cemetery Without Crosses, Once Upon a Time in the West, both in '68, One Damned Day at Dawn, Django Meets Sartana in 1970, For the Apocalypse in 1974, and his last spaghetti western, China 9, Liberty 37 in 1978. I'm sure down the road we'll probably do a complete episode on Fabio Testi. Okay, Emiliano was played by Massimo Serrato. Again, a face without a name. He was born Giuseppe Sagato on May 31st, 1916 in Oderzo, Veneto, Italy. He was an Italian leading man and star of swashbucklers and sword and sandal epics at the peak of his popularity in the 1940s and 50s. His career spanned over 40 years. Serrato appeared in 7 spaghetti westerns, including Gunman of the Rio Grande in '64 with Guy Madison, The Magnificent Texan with Glenn Saxon, Gunman in Town with Johnny Garco. Serrato had an affair with the actress Anna Magnani, who bore him a son, Luca, whom she affectionately called Celino. Luca contracted polio at an early age. In time, he was able to walk with braces, but spent much of his time in a wheelchair. Massimo is the grandfather of actress Olivia Magnani, born in 1975. Massimo Serrato died in Rome on December 22, 1989. He was 73. Redfield was played by Eduardo Fajardo. He was born in 1924 and died in 2019. We covered him in his own episode in number 33. Jessica was played by Charo Lopez. She was played by Charo Lopez was born Maria del Rosario Lopez Pinuelas on October 28, 1943 in Salamanca, Castilla y León, Spain. After her studies in philosophy and psychology, she attended the Escuela Oficial de Cinematográfica de Madrid, where she studied interpretation. She then began her film career in 1967 and has appeared in over 105 films and TV episodes. She became famous for her role as Morena Alba in the 1981 TV series Los Gozos y los Sombras. Lopez was married twice, once to director, writer, actor Jesus Garcias de Dueños, who was born in '39 and died in 2020. They were married from '65 to '72. And to journalist Carlos Gabeta, who was born in 1943. He's still alive. They were married from 1988 to 1993. Charo appeared in 2 spaghetti westerns. The other one, besides this one, was The Bandit Malpelo in 1971. And we have Pedro or Joselito Cosarito was played by Jose Calvo, who was born Jose Salgado in 1916 and he died in 1980. We covered him previously in episodes 34 and 90. Then we have Newman, who's played by Roman Barrett. Roman Barrett was actually Romano Pupo, who was born in 1933 and he died in 1994. We previously covered him in number 35. Don't forget some trivia. Pupo was Lee Van Cleef's double, and he was also a pallbearer at Lee's funeral. Last but not least, we have Lawrence, played by Ben Cara. Cara appeared in only 7 films from 1970 to 1973. Dead Man Ride is his only spaghetti western. I'm guessing he was Spanish, but can find no information on him at all. So that's it for Ben Cara. Okay, now we'll move along to the CD of the week. Okay, CD of the week is going to be Anda Muchacho Spara, which we just covered, Dead Man Ride. The first CD that was released in 2003. Composer on this is Bruno Nicolai. It was released in Italy on the CAM label, numbers CAM 508-9552-2. Has 28 tracks of music with a listing time of 49 minutes and 33 seconds. Then it was released again on CD in 2012 on the GDM label, GDM 4150. On this one, it has 36 tracks, listing time of 58 minutes and 8 seconds. Okay, those are the only two. I do not find it was ever released on LP. As far as the composer is Bruno Nicolai, who was born on May 20th, 1926 in Rome. While studying piano and composition at the Santa Cecilia Conservatory in Rome, he befriended Ennio Morricone and formed a long working relationship, eventually conducting and co-scoring many of Morricone's films. Rumors surround the split between the two, and they usually center around money and credit for who did what on certain soundtracks, but we don't know for sure. After the split, Nicolai continued to have a long career spanning the entirety of Italian film genres, from sexy comedies, gritty police thrillers, to spaghetti westerns and giallo. Nicolai also scored a number of giallo exploitation films and wrote 4 scores for director Jesus Franco. He got the reputation among fans as the guy you get when you can't get Morricone. Nicolai's score for the second of the Sabata trilogy, Adios Sabata, is one of the main reasons people tended to think that way. All the things we associate with Morricone, a Morricone score are there, the vocal stylings, the flutes, and Alessandroni's iconic whistling. But you have to remember, Bruno was in the studio when all these elements were being thrown together in the first place. He can claim some ownership to these. I always thought Nicolai was the guy who added the bells, the whistles, the anvil sounds, because when he split with Morricone, Morricone got away from that. You don't hear as many in his further scores. Anyways, Nicolai composed scores for over 100 films and worked on 50 spaghetti westerns as either composer, conductor, or musician. He died on August 16, 1991 in Rome. It was funny that not many of his scores were released while he was alive, but once he passed away, his daughter released a lot of them, so a lot of his film music is now available. I'll post his complete scores for his films along with the scores for, not scores, but filmographies for Mariana, Koch, and Livio Lorenzen when we post this on YouTube. Okay, now we're going to move around to, we'll just do posters of the week. We've got a few posters, so we'll go to the poster vault. Okay, Tom's Post-Erratic. A couple of Belgiums. Dead Men Ride. See, they actually posted this in the window. It's not generic, but it's not great either. You also have The Long Ride. Belgium, both of these are Belgium. More generic. Then we have the German poster for The Last Gun. At least this one you can see Cameron Mitchell's face and recognize who it is. Most of the time they're pretty generic. Okay, next we're going to have Autograph of the Week. I came across one while I was researching this episode. Okay, in my folder for Mariana Koch, I found this. I forgot I had this, but there it is, autograph from Fistful of Dollars. Okay, now we'll wrap stuff up with News of the Week. Okay, News of the Week. We have a little of everything this week. First of all, from Cinecittà News, we have Sergio Leone, the Italian who invented America, directed by Francesco Zappel, produced by Sky Studios and Sky Italia with Leone Film Group, was voted the documentary of the year for 2022. This was announced by the SNGCI, and they will deliver the Nastro d'Argento to the director in Rome immediately after the Berlin Film Festival. So congratulations on the Sergio Leone documentary. Next we have a new French DVD release of Le Grand Silence, The Great Silence, 1968, directed by Sergio Corbucci, starring Jean-Louis Trintignant, Klaus Kinski, Frank Wolff. Was released on February 1st on the Studio Canal label in PAL. It's in DD 2.0 mono, French and Italian with French subtitles and a running time of 105 minutes. It's all the information we can find. You can go to the Spaghetti Western database and see if Seb's come up with some more. But Amazon France didn't even post a cover. We had to come up with this one just to show it. And last but not least, Boot Hill, we have veteran French actor, director, and writer, comedian Louis Velay. Died at his home in Paris, France on February 2nd. He was 96. He was a leading actor in the 1960s and 1970s and wrote several television soap operas. He was born in Paris on May 29, 1926. He made his film debut in the 1950s with Maurice Chevalier, and he appeared in over 25 theater plays where he was also a playwright. Velay appeared in 2 Euro westerns, Frontier Hellcat, pictured here in 1964 as Gordon, and in the 1986 short film Bitumus. Okay, that's all I've got for you for today. I hope to see you next week. And remember, this is a Roberto Genesi production. Until next week, adios, amigos.